welcome to the Georgia College and State University Alumni Lifelong Learning Series. My name is Nadira Mayweather, and I am our Director of Alumni Engagement. And I'm so excited to have this partnership with our College of Continuing and Professional Studies, who is directed by Miss Angela Crisco, and I'll allow her to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about Continuing and Professional Studies as well.
Hello, I am Angela Crisco, Executive Director for the School of Continuing and Professional Studies. Our mission is outreach to our alumni, to the community, and to our local members here to provide continuing education opportunities. And so through a program that we had with President Cox, I had the opportunity to meet Miss LL Purcell. So I'm really excited to share with you who she is and what we're going to be hearing about today. In my conversation with LL, she and I talked a lot about Agile, which was a program that was, or a philosophy developed for software companies. And so through our conversation, I said, I really like the philosophy around Agile, but I really want to see how we might be able to incorporate that in some of our leadership programs that we have. So LL and I had several conversations, and I've come to learn that LL is an Agile transformational coach, and she has adopted Agile for frameworks and teams. And so I want to give her the opportunity to share with her how she has taken this philosophy and used it with the many people that she has coached and trained, the teams that she's worked with, and what that might look like going from the philosophy built for software to incorporating that for people near and far. So please help me welcome LL to the screen. And LL, take it away.
Thank you so much, Angela. I appreciate the intro. Yes, today's topic is going to be Agile, but for personal resilience. I have evolved as Agile has evolved, and I've found many different ways to use it. I'll do an introduction on myself. We will answer the question, what is Agile and how it has evolved? We're going to speak to some of the Agile principles on how you can use them personally. We will summarize. And although I have a space for questions at the end, if you have a question, raise your hand, put it in the chat. Angela's going to be watching the chat. I would be more than happy to stop and answer a question. That makes sense because if it's on your mind, it's probably on somebody else's mind. And if we can answer it right then, it gives you an opportunity to build on what you're learning. That's Agile. Okay, so I attended Georgia College and State University for my master's in management. So I wasn't the traditional four-year student. What I appreciate and value most about Georgia College was that I was able to work full-time during the day, work on my master's at night, and it was affordable. It was a perfect example of how they were serving the community by allowing us to continue our careers and our education all at the same time. And I am deeply grateful for that. So I started out my career as a computer programmer, as we really refer to them as developers. After my MBA from Georgia College, then I moved into management. And shortly after that, I got my project management professional, the PMP certification, because it was popular at the time. It made sense. It worked well with my MBA. But as software developed, I developed with it, and I evolved into Agile. My degrees and certifications are listed there, along with some of the companies that I've worked for over my career. So Agile started out as the manifesto for Agile software development. And what I am showing you is I am taking you right to the source of where the Agile manifesto is. I'm not looking at you to read this. It's kind of hard to read because I just pulled it from the source. But I want you to understand that I will provide links at the end. You can go and look at this material yourself and give your thoughts around it. So the manifesto for Agile software development has evolved. But let me give you the history about where it started. When we created software back 80s, 90s, generally to create a large system would take anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. And we went through a long process to do that. And we called that process waterfall. And we would work with our business partners at the beginning to diligently write down all of the requirements that they had for the system. Then they would sign off on that, and we would start and take those requirements and we would break them down into more detail. And then we would take that detail and break it down to technical specs for the developers. So it was not unusual for 9 months to go by and no coding had been done yet. And then we would start the coding, and then we would get it tested, and then the business partner would get it back. Well, the problem with that is the business changes, the environment changes over 18 months to 2 years. So the system we were giving them was already out of date. We were asking them at the very beginning to tell us everything they needed. Seriously, was that fair? Were they really going to know? As well as, did we interpret some of what they told us incorrectly? So while we were producing good systems, we had to get better at it. And that was the motivation for the 17 people who were software leaders came together and said, we've got to find a better way to do this. The manifesto is not a how. They're not talking about how you do customer collaboration, but you have to do customer collaboration. It's not about how you're going to respond to change. You just have to plan that however you are going to develop your frameworks, you are going to be able to respond to change quickly. Agile is a mindset. It's a way of thinking about how you are going to do this. It's not the how. The how is, and I'm sorry, people are pinging up and I apologize, it was a squirrel moment. So it's about the way you have to think about it. The hows come with the frameworks that are under Agile, and I'm only going to really talk about one of the frameworks today as a way of explaining how business uses it and how you will be able to use it. Let's see. So it's a mindset. And how this has evolved is that after business people working continually with software developers, they recognize that these principles could be of value in their own work, which is not necessarily the work on computer. So now many people refer to this as the manifesto for Agile solution development. So that way businesses can turn their manual processes and still make them agile, even though they have nothing to do with software. And we're going to take it one step further today, because we're going to take some of these principles and we're going to apply them to our own personal lives about how we can make ourselves a little more agile. Okay, there are 12 principles behind Agile. No, you are not going to read these. This, again, I'm just taking you to the original place where this is, and you can get to them from there. But I'm just going to pick out several that we will discuss. So principles 1 and 3 have to do with delivering software very quickly, because we don't want to deliver something that's already out of date or really doesn't meet those needs. So we do that through delivering software incrementally. And what do I mean by that? Just a very small piece of it. So how do you, if I need a whole system and you're only going to deliver me this much, what good is it? Well, there's going to be a lot of good to it, and I'll give you an example of it. And that little piece is not going to take me 2 years to do. That little piece I'm going to give to you very quickly. So as a business, you're going to start and get a return on investment in ROI because I'm giving you little pieces of this immediately. My favorite example on this is online banking. Now, you know how robust online banking is. You can pay bills, you can automatically pay bills, you can transfer money from account to account, you can check your bank balances like that, you can apply for a mortgage, a car loan. The online banking is so robust. But what banks could have done in order to satisfy our customer very quickly is, instead of building all of online banking, they just build the first piece. And that first piece, what the business partner has decided is going to be the most important, and then we add pieces in terms of their priorities. So it's very important to have your goal and to prioritize all the pieces that'll help you meet that goal. So if you think about online banking, the most important thing is to have people to be able to log on securely and maybe check their bank balances. Well, you're probably thinking, well, that's not very much. But at the time, it was. Because up to that point, the only way you could get your bank balance is if you went into the bank, stood online to talk to a teller who would then tell you what your balance was. Or maybe you could call the call center for the bank during specific business hours, and they would tell you what your bank balance was. So for you to be able to log on and find your bank balance, that was a win for you as the client. It was a win for the bank because they were getting return on their investment into the computer system. And they were also able to have their tellers focused on financial transactions rather than reporting bank balance, and the people at the call center handling more difficult problems. It was a win for the bank. It was a win for the client. And even if you just deliver that much. And this is probably one of the hardest things when I teach Agile, because in most people's minds, it's, I need everything. Yes, you do, and we'll give it to you, but you have to prioritize what pieces you need first. So these principles have to do with being able to deliver that much, have it have value, and do it so quickly that the customer is seeing more functionality very fast. So they're getting the ROI. The other thing that we get out of that is feedback. Because if you're building an entire system and when you finally give it back to the business partner, and now they're looking at it and saying, yeah, that's not exactly what I wanted, that's too late. If I give you a little piece of that and you say, I like it, but if we could move this around on the screen, and you know what? I can take that feedback and make that next piece that we do, use that feedback, then we are continually improving our systems based on that fast feedback. So that's the intent of these two principles. That's what they have to do with. A part of going through this process, when I was managing and people would come to me to sign off on the documents so that they could develop this huge system, the first thing I would do was I would look at my team, because they knew the material. I could read it, but they knew the material better than I. And I would ask them a few questions, satisfying me that I could sign off on this, that I knew it. What makes more sense when we do Agile is pushing the decisions down, decentralizing those decisions, and allowing the people who are doing the work to make those decisions and move forward. Decentralizing decision-making is an important part of us having the ability to deliver these systems quickly and not wait for some manager's sign-off. It's let the people who know the material make the decisions because they're in the best place to do it. Okay, I know that was a lot, but there is a lot to it. And let's make sure. We'll come to that piece a little bit later on. Okay, so the first thing I'm showing you is a Kanban board. Okay, and this is the technical part. And this is the most basic form of a Kanban board. What's a Kanban board? It's Japanese for visual sign board. This actually came out of manufacturing at Toyota. So if you've ever heard of the works of Tachi Ono or the American Edward Demings, this is what it was based on. It's a visual signboard. If you are working with a team of people and you have your tasks and everybody is moving their tasks along the board, it's very easy for you as a manager, for you as a teammate to see where everybody is. So in our personal Kanban board, I chose cleaning out the attic. We only have 4 columns, and we may not even need that many. We have our backlog, our to-dos, the one that we're working on right now. If we need to verify something, we have a column for that, and then a done. All right? To do, working in progress, done. I said, okay, if this is a personal Kanban board, maybe a family has been just shoving stuff in that attic for many, many years. And now it's time to figure out what's in there and get rid of it. So what's our goal? Well, we have to break the work down because we just say, clean out the attic. That's too large. That's too intimidating. It won't get done. But if we say our goal is to do sort what's in that 10 by 10 space and break the attic up into regions, and we get one done, then we can feel like we have accomplished something. So I said, okay, we could break the attic up into 5 spaces, and maybe we're going to do that one a day. Maybe we're going to do it just on every Saturday for the next several weeks. When you are planning, when you're breaking down and planning your work, you would list out how you want it broken down. It is still very similar to what we talked about, where we're going to take the online banking system and just say we're going to do the sign-in piece. Then we're going to add into that piece transferring money from account to account. Maybe the next thing we would build would be the online banking. Maybe the piece after that would be applying for a loan. So all those little pieces, we broke them down. That's the same thing we're doing here, just on a smaller scale. We have our goal, clean out the attic, and now we're going to break down how we're going to do that. So when we get done sorting it, all right, maybe we said we're going to have 3 categories. We're going to have trash, we're going to have donate items, and we're going to organize what the items we're going to keep. So after everything's sorted, let's bring the trash to the dump. Let's bring the donated items to wherever we're going to donate it to. And let's organize those items we're going to keep so that way the attic isn't such a mess. So this is going to be done over time in order based on the priority. Obviously, we're not going to bring stuff to the dump unless we've done all of our sorting first. So you list out the things you have to do, you prioritize them, and then you keep track of them as you get them done. Very simple Kanban board. But everybody in the family can see where we are with our work. It was the same thing when I started running teams Kanban many years ago. We had a whiteboard. There wasn't software to support us then. So we had a whiteboard and stickies. and we would write on it what was the task we wanted to get done, and they would all sit in our backlog. It would have to be prioritized, and when somebody was available to do something, they would pull off the most highest priority sticky and move it to the column that said that they were doing a particular kind of step for that work. And we would continue to move those stickies across the board until they got to done. Made it very easy for management, no status reporting, come in and look and see where we are on the board. Made it very easy for the team to understand where everybody else was. So what I'm suggesting is that you can have that same kind of thing for all your personal goals and break them down, and you could have your own Kanban board. All right.
LL, we
Yes.
have a question that's related to this. The question is coming from Artonia. Is it similar to a vision board, just more detailed and specific? How would you address that?
So that's a great question, because my experience with vision boards is that they're not really concrete. It's not this is what you have as a vision board. This is what I have in my head. So a lot of times when I've seen vision boards, it's been I want to have a future where I am going to be at a certain level in my company, that I'm going to, and Artonia, since I can see you, am I speaking the right way about what you think? Okay, all right. So that's kind of fuzzy. I agree with you. And now I'll go back to business. When upper management comes up with these great ideas that they have, like 30 years ago when they said online banking, that's all they had. I want this great online banking for our people to use, for our clients to use computers. That was way out there. But then middle management has to say, okay, I know what they want, but how can we do that? So you're absolutely right. It has to start with a vision. But this Kanban board is way lower detail, because what happens is you get the vision, then the like with the one with online banking, I want online banking, then middle management has to say, well, what does that mean? Oh, well, people will have to log on. They will have to be secure. We will need to build in features like check your bank balances, make a deposit by taking a picture of your check, transfer money from account to account. So middle management is stuck with putting some reality to it. And this is even one step below that, because normally, like if this were a Kanban board for online banking, it would list out securely logging on. So you would have to do a lot of technical things in order to have people just to be able to securely log on. We call those things stories. So our stories, and this is where it gets really tricky in business, our stories have to be small enough that somebody can get them done quickly. If we were using the framework of Scrum, we would probably have to get stories done within a week. If we're using a Kanban board, my teams, I would always encourage them to get stories done within a matter of a couple days. So you have to really break work down. And that is difficult for people to learn how to do. So yes, it starts with that vision, but at this point, it's more detailed. And when you're using this for your personal Kanban board, this is very concrete. I am going to get that attic cleaned out. This is how I'm going to do it. In Kanban boards, which is different than the framework of Scrum, in Kanban, our goal is to just get work across the board. So we don't say, I'm going to have it done by Friday. We say, I am working on getting this first space done. And I'm not going to do any other work. I'm not going to start on that second space until I get the first space done. So this has a lot more detail in it. Tony, was that helpful? Okay, all right. Great question, though. Thank you so much for doing that. Why do we not start a couple of these at a time? Why am I breaking them down so small? Because humans are terrible at multitasking. And I know we all think we can do it, but guess what? There's been more neurological studies on the human brain testing out the fact that we think we can multitask and we can't. So accept this about yourself, and that's okay. And just focus, because in my world, we say things like focus to finish and stop starting and start finishing, because that is the worst. And if you don't make your story small enough, if it's going to take you 2 weeks to do something, you're going to get interrupted. And then you're not going to get it done. So you always make your story small enough that that's achievable. You can actually get it done. And keep that in mind when you set up your personal Kanban boards. Make sure it's achievable for you to get it done without leaving yourself open for a lot of interruptions. Okay. Let's see. Along these lines, we talked about decentralizing decision-making, giving it to the people who are actually doing the work. The other thing you have to keep in mind is, on a personal basis, is, do I have to do it? Am I the only person who can do this? Probably not. But are you willing to let go? Because that's what it requires. It's easier if you share a task with people. All right, family, the oldest sister in the family is graduating from high school. Everybody's going to come together as a family and plan the party. All right. So we have somebody who's going to be in charge of food. All right. Maybe mom takes that. The physical setup, maybe getting some extra chairs. Dad can do that. All right. And the younger sister is going to do the decorations. So you decide what the family budget is, what's going to get apportioned out to each, and you tell the child who's going to do the decorations, you have a $50 budget. You go off and do it. That's hard for many people because they want to micromanage it. I'll tell you what decorations, I'll tell you where to go and get them. All right. It's the same in business. When I was a senior level computer programmer and somebody else would be tasked to do something else, it's hard not to want to watch over them and make sure they're doing it the right way. But what makes a good leader is someone who can, even if it's not the way you want it done, you still let go and you let them do it. Now, you notice my verify column in here. There are things that do have to be verified. So as a lead computer programmer, as long as they met the standards for the company and it passed all the tests, then I let it go. And then maybe I would offer them suggestions to help them if they were a junior kind of programmer. Maybe I would offer them some suggestions as to how they could improve their code, but their code went in as is. And as a manager, as you move up in the ranks of business as a manager, you have to be able to let it go. Let your team do their work. As long as they are meeting the company standards and it works, let it go. And in a personal life, if you're one of those people who want to have your hands in all the pies, that's something that you have to control about yourself. It makes life easier when you feel like you don't have to know everything and do everything. Is it good enough? Then go. Okay. Let's see. All right, so I was telling you that humans are poor at multitasking, so you really have to just break the story down, and that's the only thing you're going to do. Breaking it down, and then when you get that piece to done, you feel a sense of achievement. That is done. I can see the difference we have made because I got that one piece done. So whether it's allowing people to log on securely and check their bank balance, it's done. We can move on to the next piece. Or we cleaned out the section of the attic that was over the kitchen. It's done. It's clean. We're ready to move on, do the next piece. It's that sense of achievement, and that kind of what feeds you to go on and do the next piece. Breaking the work down is the same no matter what framework of Agile you use, but it's just how you execute is what makes the frameworks differently. Okay, and I know that was a lot to absorb. So now we're going to break into some of the things that support these two ideas that we've talked about. Welcome changing requirements. Remember what I said, that we would develop a system and give it to them 18 months later, and it was like, this isn't exactly what we need. What used to happen is halfway through the process, they would say, oh, remember that? I told you I changed my mind. And we'd say, no, you can't change your mind. Here's your signature. This is what you said we were going to develop. So the benefit to Agile is we're only developing that piece. So if you have another thought about a piece we're not developed yet, we haven't written all the requirements for, that's awesome. When we write all those requirements for that piece, then we'll take everything into consideration. Part of what we do in any framework of Agile is after we develop that little piece, we show it to you, you say, yeah, that's what I want, and then we can put it into production so you can start using it. And then that informs you as to changes you might want to work for the next piece that we're going to add on to our online banking system. So changes, we haven't done a lot of requirements. We haven't done any work for that yet. So accepting change for a future piece, yeah, why not? So welcome change. Because on a personal, now let's get into that personal level. Change is inevitable. I graduated with my undergraduate degree in English literature. My first job out of college was as a computer programmer. How does that happen? So I started out as a computer programmer, and then I kept evolving and changing with my field. It has to happen. Life, it's all about change. And sometimes it can be really overwhelming and too much. So part of it is you just have to accept that life is going to be full of changes. And the best thing you can do is to welcome it, accept it, figure out how does that change your goal and what you're going to have to do to change with it, and just keep adjusting based on how the changes are coming at you. I know that is a lot easier said than done, but my advice on that one is breathe. All right. This is really the pivotal one for resiliency. It's one of the pivotal ones for resiliency, sustainable pace. The other thing about humans, besides we're not very good at multitasking, is that we have to give ourselves rest. As a developer back in the old days of computer programming, is they would want something to be done immediately. And although it was going to take me working 24 hours, it was that badge of honor. Oh, I'm tough. I can work 24 hours straight in a row and get this done. Was that smart? No. Was it the best way to work? No. We're humans. We need to get ourselves rest, because we are actually much more productive, effective, and efficient if we have given our brains time to relax and think, because our brains are awesome. While we're sleeping, our brain is still working on something for us. And I don't know, but I have the experience I have had the experience often where something has been, I didn't know how to do it. And then I'd go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and it's like, oh yeah, I know what I need to do about that. Can I get anybody else who can raise their hand or say, yeah, that same thing has happened to them? That's because our brains keep working, but we need the rest and we need our brains the time to process. Because actually what happens in our sleep is we take in information all day. But at night, when we're resting, our brain kind of sorts it out and puts it in the right place. And we need to allow our brains to have the opportunity to do that. So we're more effective and more efficient when we take the time to rest and let our minds need to rest to perform at their best. Business people and developers must work together because they're working towards a common goal. So in Agile and for businesses, you have the developers on the team and anybody else who is going to create the working solution. So in other words, somebody from the business is dedicated to the team with the developers, maybe a tester, maybe somebody who does user interfaces. Anybody who is going to create the working solution is on the team. So they are partnered together towards a common goal. So many of us in life, we're part of a family unit. And as a family unit, we are probably going to have a common goal. So we have to work together on a common goal. And that allows us then to use each other's skills to be able to reach that goal better together than trying to reach it separately. Making sure that your resources are aligned. If you're a single person, and although you have like a family unit, but if you're responsible for everything on your own at your own home, what you may find is that you have to build your own team, build your own network. My toughest part is that when I want to move a heavy piece of furniture, and you might not be able to tell, but I really don't have a lot of muscles and strength. It's so I know other people in my high-rise condo building. And so a lot of times I'll say, Saturday I have to do this. Could you give me a hand with that? And then the opportunity comes along later on where they need your help with something else. So build your own network, build your own team, because as much as you are responsible for yourself, you can't do everything alone. Work together with others. Okay, face-to-face communication. And I'm sure you've all read the studies or heard about the studies that most of what we communicate is not through the words. About 70 to 80% of what we communicate is in our body language. So that includes facial expressions, the way we're holding ourselves, the way we are trying to convey something. It's very important that our communication be face-to-face. And we're fortunate now. Technology allows us to do this quite easily. Face-to-face communication sets the stage for transparency, openness, and honesty. Because remember, we said that we were going to be working as part of a team or working in business with our business partners. And we're working as part of a team, and we have to make sure that we are planning as a group to get something done. All that is done through communication. All of it should be done face to face. Because if I'm watching the people who are listening in on this and I see a head nod, okay, maybe I'm a little boring. I'm not doing this right. Maybe if I see somebody nodding this way, I know I'm getting through to them. Maybe if I see somebody go like this, I better take an extra minute and explain something. We tell so much about ourselves. And if we are open, transparent, and honest about what we're thinking, we're going to make more progress. There's a scene in, think back now, The Great Gatsby. How many years has it been since you read that? And everybody was sitting around and they were just trying to decide what to do. And they decided they were all going to get in their cars and go into town. And nobody really wanted to do that, or I think maybe Daisy did, but if people are more open and honest about what they want to do, it helps the other people to understand your point of view. There are many ways to do this, giving everybody the opportunity to speak openly and freely, making sure that we've set ground rules where the first thing we're not going to say is, gee, that's a stupid idea. There's a game that you can do with your own teams. It's called Yes and. And you do that game, and you can do this for an actual work issue. But when I train people in it, I say, okay, we're going to have a party. Let's go around the room. Everybody says their idea about what we need to do for the party, and the next person has to say yes and then add their idea in. And then the next person has to say yes and, but you have to keep saying yes and. The idea is to set the mindset that you're open to what everybody else is saying and you're building on those ideas. You're creating synergy. And after I've trained a team in how to do this, then one problem we were working on was about how to do something for the system. And we did the same thing. And I would just write down what the idea was on the board. And after everybody had the chance to add their piece to it, then we went through and we constructively discussed all the ideas where we could mesh some of these ideas together. So it's a very effective method for allowing people to have good communication because you're building on one another's ideas. The other listening trick here is to approach everything with a, can you help me understand that? Or do you mean? Most important part of communication is actually listening to the person who's speaking and not preparing what you're going to say in rebuttal. It's truly listening. And if you're not sure, then you say, can you help me understand? And you ask them a question. Or if you think you are sure, then you say, do you mean? And kind of repeat it back to them to make sure that they're feeling like they've been heard and that you're truly listening to what it is they're saying. So communication, face-to-face, very important because you will get those clues, but truly listening to what somebody else is saying. It's the openness, it's the honesty, it's the transparency, because if I understand your point of view on something, we've got a much better chance of coming up with whatever the right solution is. Okay, business, personal life, it's a very effective method. Okay, simplicity, and let me do a time check here. I'll go through this real quickly. Does it really need to be done? Back in the old days when we had, we would get this laundry list of everything they wanted for the system that was going to take us 2 years to develop. They didn't need everything they asked for, but they figured if they were only going to get one shot at getting this, they were going to go ahead and ask for the moon and stars. Through the use of Agile, if we are prioritizing and developing the most important pieces, the business partner will generally get down to the bottom of the list and say, we really don't need that. The cost it will take us to make that piece of software, we probably are not going to use it. Let's skip that. We don't need to do that. So think about yourself. What do you really want to do? What is your goal? Do you need everything that you think you need? Or Or do you not have to stress yourself out over it? Simplicity. Does it really need to be done? Can you let go? Can you let somebody else do it? Does it have to be managed? Okay. The last Agile principle is for retrospectives, and it's about reflecting on what got done, what could have been done better, and what you did well, so it's the behaviors you want to continue. Feedback is essential for growth and improvement. And in business, if I had my Kanban teams, they would basically do this every day. What went wrong yesterday? What can we do better today? My Scrum teams generally did it every 2 weeks. Me personally, if I've had a long day, a tough day, I think about what I did and I actually write it down. Writing it down means I can let it go. Otherwise, when I try and go to sleep, my mind keeps moving. But if I actually write it down, what I thought I did well, how's that going to impact what I want to do tomorrow? Or what did I not do that well? And how can I either make up for it or change it so that I do it better in the future? Thinking about what you do is very important, and being open to yourself, being honest with yourself, and being open to constructive criticism, and being willing to have a tough conversation with somebody else if they need your help and they just didn't see the same thing you did. It's an opportunity to help them evolve. So, in summary, work toward your goals by breaking the work down into achievable pieces, all right? Small enough that you can get it done. Focus on the immediate piece that you're working on, focus to finish. Keep things simple, make sure you're prioritizing and delegating when you can. Be transparent with the people you communicate with, openness, honesty. Change is going to happen. Breathe, and then just replan. Sustainable pace, don't forget to take a break. Ask for help, build your own team if you don't have a network, a personal network for yourself. And then reflect on your work, on your day, on yourself, and fail forward. It's not failure when something goes wrong. You learn something from it, so you still went forward, even if it didn't quite work out the way you wanted. Questions? Answers?
What a great presentation, LL. Yes, let's get some questions.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much. I'm actually, with my current position, I'm actually a peer counselor, law enforcement peer counselor. So I'm learning a lot of these things. I've gone to resiliency classes and courses as well. But, you know, it's personal life. This is awesome because I'm one that overthinks a lot. And like you said, I'll have a lot of things going on and I'll start tasks, multiple tasks. And then I just need to learn how to prioritize in my personal life to be able to be a better coach to let the other person know too that this can be done. So I really appreciate it.
Oh,
And did you
cool.
say we'll get a copy of this after? Like we'll get an email?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Thank
will
you.
send you a copy of. Also, I have my LinkedIn address on here and my email. And reach
Okay.
out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because we work with a lot of youth with challenging behaviors, how can we teach agile and resiliency to them? Are there any strategies to help us disseminate this information in an elementary fashion to convince them that our ways as older adults and seasoned adults actually work for them?
So never worked, I've never worked with children. I usually work with companies who have adults. But I know look up personal Kanban on Google, and it's the works of the Poppin Dicks. It's a husband and wife team but they have a spin on Kanban for personal life. And I have heard of families. I know people who have families who have a Kanban board on their refrigerator. And maybe, so they'll have some tips about how to make this come across more logically. And certainly I am very open to having more of a discussion too. Maybe you and I can blue sky some ideas about what would make sense for a young person. Because first, what we have to make sure is that they know they have opportunities and that they know they can set goals. Because if they don't know that, then breaking work down is not going to make any sense to them. We have to make sure that they know they can have goals and that there's opportunities for them. So, like I said, hit me up on LinkedIn or email, and let's have another conversation.
I was just going to share, I put in the chat too, there's an app called Trello. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but that's sort of a modern day Kanban that we've used sometimes here with students and student workers. That's very helpful. And then at one point, one of the books for consideration for our first year reading book that we would look at was a book called Grit. And so I know that that's sort of targeted towards a younger audience as well. So it talks about, I believe, some of this same concepts. And there's, I can't think of her name right now, but I think it's Carol Dweck, who talks about the victim mindset versus the not victim mindset. But if you look up stuff by Carol Dweck, she also has some really good stuff on grit, resiliency, and these types of concepts.
All right, great suggestion. I'm not familiar with that one, but I will go look it up. And Thomas, you just asked for some of my references. Yeah, my references strictly come out of the works of Tachi Ono and certainly David Anderson. I think we're more familiar with David Anderson's work. The Poppendicks, though, I have heard them speak about, their personal take on Kanban. So that's what I was using as some of my references.
Well, we are so thankful for you being here today, LL. It's always exciting when we have alum that can lead these sessions and alum to join us. So thank you to all of you, everyone for joining, but also to our alum for coming into this series. And thank you also to our School of Continuing and Professional Studies for partnering with this on us. This is our 4th session now that we have had. And so this year we've kind of tried to focus with a theme on wellness. We've talked about all aspects of it. And so we're continuing to, we're hoping to continue this series moving forward. So please stay tuned. If you are an alumni, to the messaging that we send out via our social media or our Pergola posts. And if you are following LL, please continue to do so as she posts things on LinkedIn. But we are so delighted that you joined us today and that you shared these helpful tips with us. I have a whole page full of notes that I have personally taken because anytime I get nuggets, I like to hold on to them. So we're very, very thankful for you being here today, LL.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you very much. I appreciate everyone who's attended. I will send the PowerPoint slides to Nadira, and she can send them out to everyone who joined. And like I said, link in with me, LL Purcell, and my email, purcellagile@gmail.com. That's in the presentation, and I'm happy to have a conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. And we hope to quite soon be sharing out the YouTube page that Angela Crisco has delightfully created for us to house these. So if ever there's one that you did not get to attend and you want to catch back up on them, we will be adding them as we go along. So they'll be captured in time and you can go back and sort of make it your own personal library. But with that, we know that we are at time. So we just want to say thank you and wish everyone a wonderful summer. And thank you for joining us today. Any closing words, Angela?
No, thank you all so much. Thank you, LL. We will be sharing more information about our next webinar. So we hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Good job,
Thanks, LL. Great job.
Thank you.